I've been asked for my opinions on the latest One Piece TCG announcements regarding the updates to the card ban list and the upcoming block change format. So let's go over the bans first, then we'll talk about the blocks. And all of the background footage today is going to be from an upcoming One Piece duel without the added overlay graphics just yet. Alright, so starting with the bans. OP06, 086, Gecko Moria. Pretty much too much value, too easily. We first have Gecko. Since its release, the card has dominated black decks. It can bring in extra characters with no leader restrictions, which gives players an insane board advantage. Just playing it once can swing an entire match. And because balancing future 8-cost cards would be difficult, Bandai decided to ban it entirely. This is a huge shakeup for black decks. I've personally been wanting them to either ban this card for the last couple of sets, or at least errata it to leader lock it to thriller bark type character leaders. I would have settled for a limit of 2, but a ban works though. Okay, next up is OP07 045 Jinbe, the character. This is an early game monster. It was a card that was breaking early game balance when paired with leaders like Dofi or even the Marshall D Teach blue 3-cost card characters. It let players flood the board with characters way too fast. Even weak characters became a major problem when spanned early, leading to one-sided games. Bandai decided that balancing future 4-cost cards against the Jinbe would be impossible, so he's pretty much out. It felt extremely terrible playing against Dofi decks. This is a welcome change in my opinion. It was also forcing too many tournaments to see Dofi decks. Though they were a little less common in the last couple of months, still it was way too good and even rush better than a lot of red decks. Next off, we have OP02 117 Ice Age. Ice Age is gone, and honestly, we saw this coming. Many cards lower the cost, but this one did it way too efficiently for just one cost. It also enabled ridiculous combos with cost-based effects, making it hard for Bandai to design future cards without breaking the game. To keep cost reduction mechanics in check, they had to ban it. Just like with the other black cards banned before it, Ennius Lobby, the stage, and Great Eruption, the event card, black just got way too much value for too little cost and too little risk. This makes sense. Next up, EB01 059 Kingdom Come. Last but not least, this event card worked too well with an L, giving crazy removal while also making him nearly unkillable. The combo was stronger than Bandai expected, and future high-cost cards would always have to be balanced around it, so to keep the game evolving, they've removed it entirely. While mostly used in an L, other decks use it, such as Vegapunk pretty rarely, Kalgara, which is another Sky Island deck, and even ST13 Luffy used it with great benefits. The card's downside was that you had to trash your life until you had 1 or less. However, you usually used it at 1 or less anyway, making it not too much bad to use, so I am okay with this ban. Alright, so all the 4 bans above, they're clearly aimed at preventing early game blowouts, limiting broken combos, and keeping future card designs flexible. If you relied on these cards, I guess it's time to rethink your strategy. So tell me, what do you think about these bans? Did Bandai make the right call, or do you think it went too far? Let me know in the comments. Alright, now let's move on over to blocks and rotations. Okay, so really quick, for those unfamiliar, a block rotation is when older sets get phased out of standard play, allowing newer sets to come and take over. This means that certain cards will no longer be legal in the main competitive formats, pretty much keeping the meta fresh and preventing card pool from becoming overwhelming. This is mostly for tournament and official sort of play. So here's how specifically it will work in the One Piece TCG. Each block will contain 4 main sets. Starting in April 2026, Block 1 will be OP01 to OP04. They will be rotated out. Now, you're going to know which card is in which block by looking at the very bottom of each card. There's a little devil fruit there. There's your number. It shows you what block the card was printed in. Now, after that, each April, the oldest block will then rotate out of standard play. Reprints will exist for staple cards, so some may return in newer sets. Here is how the blocks are structured. As I mentioned, Block 1, OP01, 2, 3, and 4, which rotates next year April. Block 2 will be OPO 5, 6, 7, and 8. Block 3, OPO 9, 10, 11, 12. And for right now, Block 4 will be OP 13, 14, 15, and 16. This means by 2027, we're going to have a completely different meta built around newer sets. So why is Bandai doing this? Well, block rotations are a standard practice in trading card games to keep formats fresh and manageable. A constantly expanding card pool makes deck building more complex, and balancing new sets around old, overpowered cards, it can stifle creativity. We've seen this happen in games like Magic the Gathering, Pokémon TCG, both which rely on rotations to maintain balance in their games. So there's good and bad. Let's start with some of the good, right? Okay, so this encourages new strategy and, of course, leaders. It makes it easier for new players to join without needing every old set, which is a problem for anyone trying to get in the game, right? It prevents the meta from getting stale. It's always going to be switching around, and it forces deck diversity instead of relying on the same strong cards forever. This is a welcome change in my opinion. The downsides, though, players will need to buy new cards to stay competitive. You know, most people were buying the new stuff anyway because they're really powerful, so this isn't really a big, huge downside in my opinion. But some people who want to play the rogue decks, who aren't gonna get, you know, new cards printed from them, that are probably gonna be booted out from the rotation, that's gonna really be bad for them. But also, yeah, as I mentioned, some favorite cards may be obsolete in standard. And another downside is I feel like, and some people I've read feel like it's happening too soon for such a young game. It's only been out for a couple of years, but they're coming out with sets really fast. Let's talk about the community response, because this is a pretty hot topic. So I was browsing the One Piece Reddit, and here's what some people are saying about the rotation. First of all, some positive reactions. Rotation is good. It keeps things fresh. Other major TCGs do it, so it's not surprising. Another person said, I love this. The game is already getting too big too fast. Now we can focus on newer sets. So pretty much what we talked about. Some negative reactions. Way too soon. This game hasn't even been around long enough for a rotation to make sense. Now, it's like I don't know. What was the game that came out like One Piece that got huge and, you know, had a rotation? What was the quickest a game has released that they added rotations? That's what I need to know. If One Piece is the first game to ever release this quick and have rotations, then hey, they're gonna set the precedent. Okay, another negative reaction. I don't want to constantly buy new cards just to stay relevant in standard. To be honest, if they were already worried about competition in standard, they were already buying the stuff that they needed anyway. So that's a really weird point in my opinion. So we have some mixed takes though. At least Bandai gave us a full year's notice, but I'm sure how it will affect the player base. That's very true. The future is uncertain with this change here, but I think personally, well, here's my personal take. I think the block rotation is good. Like overall, just good for the One Piece TCG. A lot of people are upset, you know, it's too soon. That may be true, but at least they're giving us a full year. I get why people are, you know, they don't want to buy new cards to keep up. It's a financial commitment for sure. But this is a standard practice for Pokemon gathering. And I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Wait, Yu-Gi-Oh! Might not do it, but I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Does a lot of bans. Oh, and also, I think they do it for Digimon, but only in the Japanese version. They have blocks as well, and it's been out for a little bit longer than the One Piece TCG. They're both by Bandai, and they have blocks, but I think it's only in Japan and not in English right now. Someone could let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that. Okay. But yeah, I'm looking forward to at least deck building with new leaders and old leaders. It's going to make them play a lot more differently over time. You know, I make so many decks. You guys know, if you follow the channel, I make decks for every single leader multiple times. And honestly, it's starting to take up too much time having to check every single card from every single set ever released so far to see if it fits in the deck. It's a lot more easier if it's a one color. For example, the kid came out, look at every yellow card. But the EBO2 Luffy, I have to look up every green card, I have to look up every purple card. It takes a long time. A streamlined format will make things easier for me personally to build decks without having to constantly go back through years of expansions. And I do this for fun. I want to make a YouTube channel. Think about people who jump in later and they have to go through like 5+ years of expansions. They're not going to want to do that. If they only have to worry about what's coming up soon and what's been relevant for the past year, it's a lot more easier. That being said, how is this going to affect the long-term growth? Will new players stick around knowing they'll have to rotate cards out? It's a thing that's been around before, so maybe they're used to it. Or will it make the game feel more accessible? Because once again, they won't need to chase old expensive cards. We'll have to wait and see. I think it's really going to mess up the third-party market, by the way. Ooh, it's going to be insane to see how many cards go up and down on the TCG market. With block rotations, we are gonna see new formats emerge, including standard format, where only the most recent blocks will be legal. We're gonna see an eternal format where all cards will remain playable, like a legacy mode. You know what? Because I run a channel that, you know, makes a lot of decks, I'm probably gonna end up making the standard format and eternal and the limited format for all you guys anyway. So if anything, that's just more content. And of course, the limited format, which I just said, certain blocks or sets will be featured in specialized events. For example, oh, it's a throwback tourney. Let's do everything that's set one, etc. This means that even if your favorite card rotates out in standard, it won't be completely useless. You'll be able to use it in extended and fun formats. So at the end of the day, guys, I think block rotation is happening whether we like it or not. While some players are frustrated, others are excited for a fresh start. I totally understand both sides, but personally, I'm looking forward to seeing how this shapes the meta and forces player to adapt new deck building strategies. Let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about block rotations? Are you for it or are you against it? And of course, what do you think about the bans? Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more duels and deck profiles for everything anime TCG we cover on the channel. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.